About the future of search, actually, because a lot of people now are talking about chat as a new interface. Obviously, Gemini is incorporated, or search has incorporated Gemini or AI results in the context of Google. But a lot of people are now talking about agentic flows, and everybody's going to have a personal agent who, instead of typing in a query, it'll go and do something for you. Instead of asking about trips, it'll go and plan a trip for you. What do you view as the future of search? Is it a distribution mechanism? Is it a future product? Is it one of N ways people are going to interact with the world?
I feel like in search, with every shift, you're able to do more with it. And, we have to absorb those new capabilities and keep evolving the product frontier. If it's mobile, the product evolved pretty quickly. You're getting out of a New York subway, you're looking for web pages, you want to go somewhere, how do you find it? So you're constantly shifting people's expectations shift, and you're moving along. If I fast forward, a lot of what are just information-seeking queries will be agentic in search. You'll be completing tasks. You'll have many threads running.
Will search exist in 10 years?
Well, you may...
Or it just evolves into something?
It keeps evolving. Like, search would be an agent manager, right, in which you're doing a lot of things. I think in some ways, I use anti-gravity today, and, you have a bunch of agents doing stuff. And I can see search doing versions of those things, and you're getting a bunch of stuff done.
But I think the root of your question is, if you think of search as a prompt that is not longer than one line, returning a bunch of different ranked results, as opposed to just telling you the right answer or something. I think your question is, does that product modality exist?
But today in AI mode in search, people do deep research queries, right? So that doesn't quite fit the definition of what you're saying, right? So, but kind of people adapted to that, right? So I think people will do long-running tasks.
Yes, sure.
Can be asynchronous.
Like, we all started, or life started as unicellular organisms, and now we have this complex life. And so the question is almost like, does that form or version or paradigm eventually go away? And really, what was search becomes an agent, and your future interface is an agent, and the search box in 10 years or N years is no longer.
I mean, the form factor of devices are going to change. Sure. I/O is going to radically change. And so, so it's tough to, I think you can paralyze yourself thinking 10 years ahead. But we are fortunate to be in a moment where you can think a year ahead, and the curve is so steep. It's exciting to just do that year ahead, right? Whereas in the past, you may need to sit and envision 5 years out. I'm like, the models are going to be dramatically different in a year's time. And so, so I think riding the curve itself is exciting. And so I think it'll evolve, but it's an expansionary moment. I think what a lot of people underestimate in these moments is it feels so far from a zero-sum game to me, right? Like the value of what people are going to be able to do is also on some crazy curve, right? So once you view it that way, people would ask all these questions, right? Like, YouTube has done well since TikTok and Instagram has, so I can give many examples. I think, the more you view it as a zero-sum game, it looks difficult. It can become a zero-sum game if you're innovating or the product is not evolving, or, but as long as you are at the cutting edge of doing those things. And we are doing both search and Gemini, and right, and and so they will overlap in certain ways. They will profoundly diverge in certain ways, right? So and so I think it's good to have both and embrace it.
When we talk about kind of search and where it's going and things like this, I'm reminded of the fact that basically a year ago, kind of spring, summer 25, sentiment was very negative on Google. The prevailing view was that search is cooked, and going to have a really hard time. The core business model is under attack. Blah blah blah. Google was trading for $150-ish a share, and now people have realized that's silly. Google has up and down the stack, whether it be applications or models or TPUs or whatever. It turns out, as well as Waymo and YouTube and all the cool bets. What do you think investors, as a proxy for kind of informed sentiment, misunderstood this time last year? Because clearly there was some big misunderstanding.
It's obviously kind of very inward focused in that moment. So, to me, it was very clear in that moment, hey, the Overton window shifted. We have, like, I felt like the company was built for that moment. The vertical thing, it's not an accident or something. It was a very intentful. We were on the 7th version of TPUs.
Yes.
I remember it might have been 2016 Google I/O where we announced the TPUs and spoke about we are building AI data centers. This was 2016. We were thinking about the company was operating in an AI first way. So we had deeply internalized the shift. So to me, we were behind in terms of frontier LLM models, but we had all the capabilities internally and we had to execute to meet the moment. But we had, the exciting part was, when I look at it from full stack, we had the research teams, we had the infrastructure teams, we had all the platforms, and we had been investing intentfully in many businesses, right? And to me, I suddenly felt like, wow, we have this one common technology which can accelerate all those businesses. Search to YouTube to cloud to Waymo, all relies on progress. And this, so it was a very leveraged way to make progress. So I understood it, and to the earlier point of the discussion, I didn't view it as a zero-sum moment at all, right? And I felt like everything is going to scale up 10x, right? And there's going to be room for other people, right? And you go back, Amazon has done well since Google came into the picture and Facebook. So we underestimate the growth scenario of how all these things work, right? So, but we had to execute better as a company. So that's what I meant by I was more focused on that.
Was there something that demonstrated to the outside world that, oh, they got this? Was it Gemini 3 that changed people's minds? Or I don't follow all the timelines. But
I think the real model probably where people saw it was maybe Gemini 2.5. And getting to the frontier on particularly around multimodality. We made a bunch of credit to the Google DeepMind teams, right? I think we paid a bit more of a fixed cost up front, but we designed the Gemini models to be very multimodal from day one. And so there were areas I think the strength started showing. Nano Banana was an example of it, right? So you were able to see it all together. But look, it's an amazingly dynamic frontier. I think there are 2 to 3 labs who are pushing each other pretty vigorously. At any given month, we feel like, oh, great, we've done this well. Oh, shit, there's like a couple things we're behind, right? But I think the picture will again be dynamic in a few months. So I think the frontier is intense, as you would expect it to be. So that's how I think about it.
It's kind of interesting because when I talk to researchers, not at Google or at the other labs, one of the things that they commonly bring up is that they feel like the difference between the 2 or 3 other labs and the Google team is that Google is not as, they call it AGI pilled. In other words, there's less of a belief in AGI being right around the corner and the acceleration through it. And obviously the folks at Google are thinking deeply about that. A, do you think that's true? And B, do you think that it all impacts some notion of what the future actually looks like and therefore what people are building against?
Look, I think, we probably have scaled our CapEx from 30 billion to approximately 180 billion.
It's like real money now.
You don't do it if you don't think, about the curve a certain way. I view it as largely semantics, maybe because we are a larger company with a lot of products that touches so many people at so many levels. Maybe the language of how we talk about it might be different. I think the founders were AGI pilled. Probably, my earliest conversation.
Yes.
So I think this notion that at Google we haven't understood what AGI is, or Demis and team, or Jeff Dean and team. At one point, I don't know, Demis, Jeff, Ilya, Dario were all there, right? So we can just, so, you know.
I like that retort. It's like, hello, have you been paying attention for the past 20 years?
Yeah, so that doesn't make sense to me. I think some of it is, you know, if you're a younger company, you know, or you're more a pure research lab, you know, you may be headquartered in San Francisco. You know, there are a lot of small attributes which can probably make a difference. But I don't think at a foundational level, there is a difference in outlook on what the curve is, right? Or how we internalize the technology. Look, I think even within the company, there's a set of us living on the bleeding edge, firing agents, seeing what these things can do, see the agents pick up skills, do stuff, and also look back 3 months ago what they could do now. And we are living that exponential internally, right?
I think you're both right, where I agree, you can kind of point at the history of Google. I think what Alad's getting at is like a feeling. Where I saw a tweet go by that someone was saying, what you have to realize to explain what's currently going on in the Valley is that every tech executive has severe AI psychosis right now and is spending, you know, a huge amount of time writing code and talking to AI and things like that. I thought that was a funny take and not without any truth to it. And I'm curious, what were your feeling the AGI moments along the way of the recent, or, you know, to what extent do you have AI psychosis these days?
My first feeling the AGI moment was 2012 when Jeff Dean demoed the earliest version of Google Brain. This is when the neural networks recognized a cat, right? So that was 2012. I went with Larry to the DARPA challenge. It might have been 2014, I think. I need to be exact about when we went there, seeing the cars drive there. Demis demoing the earliest versions of the models having what we would call as imagination. So there have been many moments like that. So it was obvious the technology is progressing. In terms of living now and kind of having a visceral feel for it, I think the closest I would say is if you're coding and you give it a complex task and you never open the IDE and you're in some agent manager world and you see it kind of do it, you know, and how powerful it is. So, you know, if you can, you know, you call it field AGI. So there are moments like that.
Yes. I did a little